Hello my friends, and welcome to my February reading wrap-up, where I'm already planning to pause my filming of this video and make tea in between because I read so many books and I expect this is going to be a very long and chatty video as a result. It turns out that winter got to me in February and I ignored almost all my responsibilities, all the ones that I could ignore, and I read a bunch of books. I think, if I counted correctly, I read 23 books. Some of them, the word book is a term used loosely, but some of them were decently big. And then I DNF'd 2, I think. So yeah, out of the 28 days in February, I finished a book almost every day. And still somehow managed to keep everyone in my house alive. Maybe that wasn't thanks to me. Yeah, definitely winter blues. February hit hard. Hopefully March is a little, I want to read a lot, but hopefully it doesn't feel as bleak. So I'm going to be turning to my reading journal to remind me of all the books that I read. I have a bunch of them here with me, as well as some that I don't have with me. And I think we're just gonna go in the order that I have them written down in here, which is not really any order in particular. There's definitely a little bit of everything. Oh, actually one other thing. I have decided, and it's kind of like a non-decision decided, but I've decided that I do not need to star rating every book. I will still do some of them, give star ratings on Goodreads and Storygraph, but sometimes I just don't want to, and I'm allowing myself the option to not. It's kind of huge, and it makes me feel more free, and I'm appreciating it. I'm not saying you guys need to give it a try necessarily, but something to consider. It's something that some people that I follow are very I do not give star ratings, and I was always like, why not? That's weird. And now I'm just gonna be that person in between that sometimes does and sometimes doesn't. And I feel really good about that. It's strange. Okay, let's get on to the books. We'll start with some fantasy. We'll start with the one that was the indie book club read for February, and that was Crown of Beauty and Anarchy by Aurora Bell. I just saw an announcement from her on Instagram that she is working on her next book. This one is a retelling of Snow White, the fairy tale of Snow White, as well as elements of Queen or Empress Matilda from the 12th century, which was a real person. So I'm hosting this book club over on Instagram. I'm popping in on my stories the last Wednesday of each month to share some thoughts and information about the book. So if you want some of those thoughts, you can hop on there to see. Overall, I really like it when a book, any genre, can make me interested in diving into history. So I had never heard of Empress Matilda before, and I thought that was a very fun addition to the book. In this one, we follow Ira, who is supposed to be the princess, supposed to eventually become queen, but like Snow White, she runs away from her stepmother who wants to kill her. This also made me read the original Snow White from Brothers Grimm, and there was so much more, not so much more, but there was more to the fairy tale than I was expecting. So there was a few times in here where I felt like Ira was kind of making the same bad choices, like getting things from people that she shouldn't be, opening doors to people she shouldn't. But it turns out that's part of the original fairy tale. So I appreciated learning about that. I liked a lot of the story. I'm not huge into completely medieval, medieval speech. There was some of that in here. And maybe because I grew up reading the King James version of the Bible, and we just don't talk like that anymore. So I have a low tolerance for that. And I do wish that Ira could have had more depth to her. I didn't feel like there was anything special about her. I would have liked to see more, but I am excited to read more from Aurora Bell. This was her, I think officially her first book. So excited to have read it. Excited to continue with the indie book club. One thing that I thought was really cool though is she did have this page that had medieval words and slang. The only thing is I wish it would have been at the beginning of the book, because a number of these words I Googled, and Google could not tell me anything about the word. It didn't know the definition, didn't know the medieval definition. So I always wish that could be at the beginning of the book. This is one out of 2 books that I read this month that I feel like those things should be at the beginning. But I do like it when authors include it. I just want it at the beginning. Okay, let's move on. This is, very random order. This is kind of the order I shared them in my TBR video, my February TBR. I read Knowing God by J.I. Packer this month for my in-person Christian nonfiction book club. And it says in here, this is Paul David Tripp saying, if there is one book that every single Christian should read alongside the Bible, it is this book. And I don't think I would dispute that. This was a very good read, all about knowing God. It's set up into a couple of different parts. We had Know the Lord, Behold your God, and If God Be For Us. And I have never read anything by J.I. Packer before, but our church will often play clips of things that he says before church, and I really appreciate his wisdom. This book was written in the 70s, and I feel like it's still very applicable. I definitely feel like some chapters I enjoyed more than others. I got more out of than others. Maybe he's a little bit too smart and above me. Well, definitely he was. But like, I think maybe some chapters I just was not ready to read yet, or maybe aren't as applicable in this season for me. But I had some favorite chapters for sure. Jared is now reading it. My absolute favorite was near the end. He has this chapter called Sons of God, and he talks about a lot about adoption and how we are adopted into God's family, and how when you adopt a child, you don't treat them differently. And yeah, as someone that has adopted before, those chapters really hit me. I underlined a lot there, or that chapter hit me. Underlined a lot there. His writing was really reminiscent of A.W. Tozer, who I want to read another book by in March. So if you have not read Knowing God, I would highly recommend it. Definitely a bucket list Christian nonfiction book, I think. Everyone should read it at some point. Another one that was on my TBR here is Beneath False Stars by S.D. Grimm. This is I keep forgetting if it's YA. Yes, it is YA science fiction. It's dystopian, I think, where we have a bunch of people are living in a dome. So our main character, what's her name? Riley, is a hacker, and her father is working with people that live in this dome. They are people that have powers that are potentially dangerous. And right at the beginning of the book, I think the first chapter or 2, we are with Riley when she is younger, and we see her brother get killed by one of these people with power. Then as we kind of get to like present day, Riley, it's a new school year, and some of these people with power, high school students, are being integrated into the school, one of which is the guy that murdered her brother. And she is very torn because she wants this integration to succeed because it is her father's dream, something he's been working towards. But also she has very conflicting feelings. This is the second book that I've read this year that had a female hacker as a main character, which was fun because I read this near the beginning of the month, so I read it pretty close to the other hacker book that I read. I really enjoyed it. This is going to be a series. I don't know how long of a series, but this is book 1, and we are not done. I'm very curious to see how it all continues and how long the series goes. Even though this is science fiction, it did remind me of Powerless a bit, which is a fantasy book. I feel like there was some similarities between the books, which I really enjoyed Powerless, so I think that was a good thing. Definitely recommend picking this up. It came out in September, so hopefully book 2 will be coming soon. The second book in the series I read is Labyrinth Wolves. I am pretty sure I've been saying, and I guess I've been saying it incorrectly, I thought this was going to be a duology by Victoria McCombs. Turns out there's another book coming. I don't know if she was originally intending for it to be a duology and added another book on, or if I've misunderstood it right from the beginning. But yeah, this is book 2. There's definitely at least going to be a third book. In book 1, we followed Ren as she went into this labyrinth that appears every 4 years. She was 16. This book takes place 4 years later. She's 20. She's going into the labyrinth again. And then book 3, I believe we will be following a different character in the labyrinth. So I'm assuming that will also be 4 years later yet. So because this is the second book in a duology, I don't feel like I can say a ton, but I will say that Ren goes back into the labyrinth, and same thing with the first book. We've got these stone gods who were once people that for some reason are now stuck in this labyrinth, and we get their like backstory and pictures of them throughout, and they can help these contestants who are in the labyrinth. There is always some kind of reward for winning the labyrinth, and yeah, the stone gods can either help or hinder them. There's different people. We've got like Lady Luck, Father Flint. I think he's kind of like a monk or a friar or something. And it's really cool to have like their backstory as to why they're there. This one's Delilah. Can I say much more? I did not enjoy this one quite as much as book 1. I feel like the romance element to it was not as interesting as it was in book 1. It felt just a little bit too much, a little bit too angsty for me. But I enjoyed seeing them in the labyrinth again. I'm very curious to see where book 2 goes, book 3. And I did have mentioned this numerous times already, but it had a previously on Quarter Labyrinth. So you can remember what happened in book 1, which I read this right before reading the book. And it was so helpful because there are some characters from book 1 that were not main characters, but become main characters in here. And I totally would have not remembered who they were. So that was incredibly helpful. Now I have the expectation that every book in a series should have a little synopsis like this. So it's going to be a little disappointing when I read other books and they don't have that, and I'm struggling to remember what happened in the previous book. But I'm going to try to do what I can with my influence to get other authors to do this, to help those of us out that have terrible memories. So yeah, I will always be a Victoria McCombs mega fan, even if like this book didn't quite live up to book 1. Okay, let's talk about a DNF because I just mentioned Powerless. I went on to read Reckless, which is book 2 in this fantasy series, where we follow a girl named Payton, and yeah, like the first book kind of has Hunger Games vibes, and then a lot of things happen at the very end of book 1, which leads into book 2, where Payton's on the run. I won't say why, and someone's after her. And once again, it was kind of it was a little bit, my issues with it were a little bit like Labyrinth Wolves, where the romance just kind of took over a little bit too much, but Reckless was even more so. Like, there was a point where I was like, I should just quit this book. But I'm so close to the end, I will just get to the end. And then I got to the end and there was a plot twist. And I was like, oh shoot, do I have to read book 3? So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do I need to read book 3? Because I'm kind of just tempted to read a summary online and see what happens and save myself the whole angsty enemies to lovers bit that's going on in there. Let me know, weigh in. Worth reading? I did hear from numerous people that the series goes downhill, which I would agree with based on book 2. Book 1 was much better. Is book 3 worth reading? Let me know. Okay, I will talk about one more before I will go have a little break and make myself some tea and then come back and talk about a ton more books. Before Beauty is one of the fairy tale retellings that I wanted to read for February. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and in this we have a prince who lives in this castle where the castle has magic itself. The kings and princes are born with like kind of like a bit of a fire in their eyes, but it's not like fire, but it's a spark, and it has to do with the magic of the castle. And the magic is slowly seeping out of the castle. The prince started out with a soft heart, but his father definitely tried to raise him to be very hard and strong and to get rid of weakness, including not just weakness in himself, but weakness in the kingdom, which means banishing people who are not helpful for the kingdom, anyone that has any kind of like physical ailments that can't pull their weight, he's getting rid of them. And when the prince was like a teenager, I think he was doing this parade with his father, and he accidentally pushed a girl. She got run over by a horse and was crippled for the rest of her life, like has a major limp, and it's hard to walk. And also I think her wrist was broken and never properly healed. Well, it takes a while for this book to get going, but the magic ends up going out in the castle. And through a variety of circumstances, the prince requests that the girl who he kind of maimed years before come to the castle, because he heard that she had a strong heart. And there was something about the prophecy of the castle, how a strong heart maybe would mend it. And so he has this plot to somehow get her to heal the castle and bring the magic back. And so we do have this like Beauty and the Beast retelling where the main character, whose name nope, it's not coming to me, I'm blanking on. She has a beautiful heart, she's Beauty. And then we've got the prince who is the Beast, because he has turned very sour. He's very much turned into the man his father was trying to get him to be, which is one that doesn't like weakness. And the whole idea is that this girl will release the curse on the castle. I wish there was some talk about a library, but I feel like the Beauty and the Beast, the library is a really big element, especially to those who are bookish people. So I would have loved to have seen more library aspects, but I did really enjoy the book. I wish it would have got going a little faster, but overall enjoyed it for a fairy tale retelling, and I do want to read more by the author. I think I have a couple more of her books on my Kobo, so hopefully I'll get to them at some point. Okay, I can already feel that tickle in my throat. It doesn't take long. So I'm gonna go eat some lunch, and then I'll come back with a cup of tea and keep talking. I have way more books to talk about than I have talked about, so it's gonna be a long one. All right, I made it back. Have a mug of tea to help my throat. Actually just came back from a walk outside, which is very cold. I was optimistic that spring would be coming, and it is very much winter out there, but hey, spring will come eventually, right? It has to. It has to. So we will keep going through my books. I think I had one, whoops, losing papers. I had one more that was on my TBR that I actually read, and it was Met by Midnight. This is a little bit warm yet, gotta put that down. This is a Cinderella retelling. It's fantasy with some dystopian elements. So we have a world where there are these healers that have certain powers, well, like healing powers, really. And they were originally just supposed to be able to help heal people. But over the years, royalty started to force them to help. And they created a building where they were all kind of sent to, and anyone that needed healing had to go there. And in order to heal someone, like this person could be hungover. What you do is you take that upon yourself. And so our main character is the daughter of healers. She is a healer. Right at the beginning of the book, her father is set to pretty much die. Like, he's healed too much. He can no longer heal himself. And she ends up escaping this building of healing and going to the palace. And honestly, at this point, I don't remember, was she going to try to get some help? She was trying to do something there. And she came across the prince and tries to get him to help her out. This was by Janine, I can't remember her last name, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was unique. I liked the dystopian elements instead of it just being a straight up fantasy retelling. I appreciated that part, and I think that this is also a series, so I'm curious to get back into that world a bit more and learn more about it. Definitely will try more from her. Then I ended up DNFing. Oh, this is so very sad. I DNF'd Empire of Shadows by Jacqueline Benson. This is the book that I bought in December because it was the one you guys voted for. I had a TBR of books that I wanted to purchase and read, and I was so excited about it. It's like South American fantasy set in Victorian era. It sounded fun. It was like treasure hunting in the, was it like the Aztec or the Mayan area? Yeah, I can't remember. It sounded good. But then as I was reading it, I got a message that apparently, I think this one, I can't remember exactly what the message said, but something to do with the fact that there's like a little bit of spice in this book, or at least the second book has quite a bit more. And I talked about it when I shared my Christian authors and Christian book recommendations video, that I'm just so sick of that. So sick of it. So I just decided to quit it, which is too bad because it started out really funny. This book is, I don't know, it's like the right size. It feels so good in my hands. It's decently floppy. Like I just really wanted to read the book, but I quit it. I'm gonna see if my local bookstore will take it and give me some credit for a new book or something, because it was just so disappointing. So sad. Okay, now the rest of the books that I read were not on my TBR, and there's a lot of them. I'm gonna group two of them together because they are part of a series, and they are what was termed 90-minute novels. So these are by C.S. Nelson, which is Christina Suzanne Nelson, but I guess these are just more suspense novellas. So she's publishing them under C.S. Nelson. So I read the first one, On Silent Lake, and the second one was called Beneath Silent Waters. And so yeah, they're very short little novellas. They don't really have a ton of depth because of that. So they're not Christina Suzanne Nelson's typical books, which is so that it's nice that she has kind of used a little bit of a different name for them. We follow a girl named Marley Madison, and she was a detective in San Francisco, but her husband died, and I don't remember how he died, but she is going back to his hometown for a bit of a break. And then when she goes there, on her way there, she's just about there, a very injured dog comes out of the road onto the road in front of her vehicle, and she stops and she takes the dog in, and was wondering what happened to this owner, because if the dog is this mangled, she's assuming something happened to the owner, and she stumbles across this case. So she works with the local sheriff's department to figure it out. And then she decides to stay in the town and actually becomes the interim sheriff. And in book 2, there is a girl that someone saw go under the water. So they're searching the water for a girl. They're very short books. She markets them as a 90-minute novel. I'm a decently fast reader, so they take me less than an hour to read. So when I said I finished 23 books, these ones not very long. At the same time, something like Knowing God, well, not a ton of pages, definitely took a lot longer to read. Yeah, but definitely enjoyed those, but just not as much depth as a normal book, which is another reason I was thankful that I'm not doing star ratings, because I definitely wouldn't give them 5 stars, but they were super quick, and I'm definitely going to continue the series. Actually, spoiler, I read book 3 in March already, so I'm caught up on the series, but I'll talk about book 3 in March. Then I started the Holly Cross series by C.C. Warrens. The first book is Criss Cross, and this is a suspense series. The author is Christian. There is some Christian themes for sure, but it's like I can tell that it's going to be over the series. So it's not a ton in the first book. I feel like I talked about this in a video. I'm trying to remember what kind of video. Oh, I talked about it in the collab video. That's right, the Christian fiction booktuber collab. Our main character is very traumatized from her past. She cannot remember the first 10 years of her life. And then at the age of 10, she got put into foster care or around 10, and then aged out. And I think she's now 28. And so she had a very traumatic time in foster care, and then the not knowing what happened before. We get more information about her life as the book goes on, but at the beginning she is being stalked and gets attacked by someone, and the police are pretty sure that it's like someone from her past, but she's not very open with the bit of the past that she knows, and she doesn't remember all of her past. So there's like a lot of, I guess sometimes she makes some really bad decisions, but I feel like they make sense because of her trauma. And what I really appreciate is that the detective that's assigned to her case is not the same age as her, is not a love interest. He becomes like a father figure that she very slowly learns to trust. It felt very real, is how it felt. So I'm very excited to continue that series. I have not yet, but definitely will be. I think there's quite a few books in that series already. And while we do learn quite a bit about Holly's life in the first book, like we get quite a bit of her past revealed, there are still some threads that remain loose, and I'm assuming that will be picked up throughout the series as we go on. So yeah, loved that one. Then I read Mantles of Oak and Iron. I've had this on a number of TBRs and finally got to it. This is the second book in the Turum archive by Janelle Leanne Schmidt, and unlike, where is it here? Unlike Labyrinth Wolves, there was no summary of the series in this book, which is normal, but it's been almost 2 years since I read book 1. And the first 13 chapters, I think it was by the chapter 13, I was like, almost every chapter has been in someone else's perspective. Like we're following different characters, and each character has other characters in their perspective. And I just felt like we were introduced to so many characters. Probably a bunch of them we knew from book 1, but I was floundering. In book 1, we follow these 2 boys that are from the same town, same village. They're going off to college. It's in the world of like airships, and along the way, they end up taking this wizard with them who has been in his tower for the last like 200 years, I think, that no one really even believed he existed or knew that he existed. And along the way to university, their airship gets attacked by pirates. And then we follow up a bunch of those same characters in here. I've figured out as I remembered what happened in book 1, but then also a bunch of new characters. And there's a lot of politics in here. And I have decided not to continue the series, partially because it took me too long to continue. Partially because the politics, I don't know, I was just kind of a little bit bored. And also, there's like no female characters that we follow. Despite following there are some female characters, but we never are in their perspective, despite having so many characters that we were following. And I feel like I just needed that in here with all the politics, and then the school that the guys are going to is like pretty much military training. I just needed like a feminine touch in here, and there wasn't one. So yeah, I am glad I finally got to book 2, but will not be continuing with this series. I would like to read more from her though. So if you guys have recommendations, I do have some kind of classics retelling by her. I can't remember which one though. Then I went way out of my comfort zone. I was like, you know what? It's February. Jamie Jo Wright is publishing a YA romance with her daughter called Love and Baseball. I'm going to give it a try. I am always willing to read anything Jamie Jo Wright puts out. And I think this is actually going to be a series. Yeah, so I'm not the best reviewer. It was a clean YA romance. Maybe a little cringy in some areas. It's a fake dating trope. What happens is our main female character, name I'm blanking on, as per usual, she has some aunts and some friends that are just constantly on her case about having a boyfriend. She's bookish, she likes baseball, she doesn't feel like she needs a boyfriend, but everyone's on her case. So she used AI to generate some images of a guy, created a name, a little backstory, bam, she's got a boyfriend. I think this was at the end of the week or on the weekend. Here comes Monday, and this guy, the AI boyfriend that she created, is now in her school. And since he is the kind of person that can never, he would just never leave like a stray dog or a stray cat, he decides to go along with it with her. And of course they end up falling in love. It is a romance. It was good for what it was. It's just not my normal cup of tea. So, I mean, if you're interested in a YA romance, 100% recommend it. That being said, I possibly will try the next one in the series because it's Jamie Jo Wright, you guys. Then I am moving on. I read On the Edge of Trust by Patricia Bradley. This is a Logan Point novel, which, okay, I didn't know going into this that I think this is like book 5 in this series. And it's the kind of series where you don't really have to have read the previous books, but you can tell that there's some characters that are mentioned that were in previous books. Like their stories have been resolved and now they're in it. So I kind of just tried to skim over those parts because I was like, you know what, I might want to go back and read their stories. Things turned out okay. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know like what happened. That being said though, there was like one couple / storyline that I was like, I kind of feel like I read this one, but I don't think I have it marked on Goodreads, so I'm very confused. We have a true crime podcaster in here, which is the second time that I've read one of those so far this year. It's so funny, the themes that start to emerge. So something that she's involved in, she's kind of being targeted. She has a story that she's been sharing about women and domestic violence, and she's pretty sure that the husband of one of the women is after her. Her studio gets set on fire, and then at the same time her nephew is being accused of murdering his mother, who has now passed away, but her best friend. And so our character, her name is Tori, she wants to go home and help her nephew, but she has a very strained relationship with her father. But she decides, you know, her studio is on fire, she has to leave her house while there's some renovations anyway. She's going to try to go and help him clear his name, figure out what happened. She can tell, she knows right away that he's hiding something, but he's not willing to share what it is, so she can't really help him. Other than like kind of feeling like I maybe have read one of the books in this series. I don't think I've ever read a Patricia Bradley. The book that or the storyline that I feel like I have read, I don't think I have. I think she's fairly typical as far as Christian suspense goes. You follow Tori, and then you're also following an undercover FBI agent. So you know right off the bat, there's going to be a relationship there. We got the romantic suspense. Check those boxes. I did enjoy the book though. This is like my OG, like teenage years. This is what I read. So I feel conflicted because I still like the genre. It also, sometimes the formula can annoy me, and it kind of just depends on the day, honestly. So this is good, but it does follow the formula. Then I finally finished a book that I started in like October or November. I finished A Praying Church by Paul Miller. The subtitle here is Becoming a People of Hope in a Discouraging World. Why did this book take me so long to read is the question. And I think the answer is I loved his book, A Praying Life, and I expected this to be the same, and it wasn't. And I struggled the whole time I was reading it to pinpoint why. Why was I struggling to read this book? I don't think I 100% know. I think partially this book felt like it was written towards pastors, but I don't really feel like that was mentioned in the title, in the subtitle, in the back. Like, I feel like it doesn't talk about that. And then the other thing is, like, he creates this like formula for praying that, I don't know. I need Jared to read this because I need to hear what other people think. I know a lot of people love it, and I don't know if I necessarily have anything against it, but his formula just felt like a little bit like, if you just do these things, then you will get these rewards. It felt very much like we were playing a game with God. Like, if you just pray in this order, then you will get what you pray for. And then there was also this time where he was talking about how his daughter-in-law was in this prayer group with people. I don't know if I underlined this in any way. And someone was asking for prayer for, I think like they had an appliance break or something. And she's like, I can't pray for that, because she had her reason. But then his father would pray for things like, you know, appliances. And then it was like a good thing. I don't know. It felt a little weird in some spots. But there were a few things that I really loved. So I feel very conflicted about this book and would like to talk about it with someone that has read it. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts. But it feels good to be done it after reading it for a number of months. Then I listened to The Women of Oak Ridge by Michelle Shockley. Her name came up over and over again when I mentioned Christian authors that I love. And so I got this book from the library. It was the first one that was available, and it is a dual timeline story all about the secret city where people were working on the atomic bomb in the United States without even knowing about it. So we follow one lady in the 40s that goes to work at Oak Ridge. She is a messenger. She's just bringing folders and stuff back and forth between people. And her roommate goes missing. And then in the 70s, we are following this lady's niece who has come to live with her for the summer because she wants to write a paper for university about the secret city and the women of Oak Ridge. And her aunt is very tight-lipped about it, which she feels like is weird because it's no longer a secret city. Like a few years ago, the news came out that, you know, what Oak Ridge was and what they'd been doing, and lots of other people are willing to talk, but her aunt is just, you can't really get through to her. And it was very interesting. I knew nothing about Oak Ridge, and I really like historical fiction that just feels a little bit different, especially when you've got a World War II element. I have often found that a lot of them can feel the same way, or like feel like the same book told again. And so I felt like this one was very unique and really enjoyed it. And then I later went on to read or listen to another one of hers, which I'll talk about in a minute. Actually, yeah, I'll talk about one more and then we'll talk about the next one. I read a poetry book by Tanner, I don't remember his last name. He's written to speak, I think is his Instagram handle. It's called Getting Through What You're Going Through. And he is a spoken word poet mostly and a speaker. And I loved this poetry book. If I wasn't on a book buying ban, I would have already bought a copy. Definitely will be buying a copy. Well, first of all, I would recommend following him on Instagram. He often reads his poems, and I just find them so fitting, very relatable, very encouraging. I just loved this collection so much. If you like poetry, and if you've read some of Morgan Harper Nichols' poetry, I feel like his is what I've been looking for. It's like hers, but it's not quite so self-lovey. It's a little bit more realistic and I feel like theologically sound. 100% recommend that collection. And this is one that I was like, oh, I need to rate this 5 stars, because it was 5 stars, but it had a terrible rating on Storygraph, because obviously people were getting the advanced reader copy off of NetGalley, not realizing it was a Christian poetry collection and just giving it terrible ratings, because poetry these days has to be very, very, I don't even know what the right word is. Honestly, like explicit, I feel like these days is what poetry has become, like mainstream poetry. And if that's what you're going for, that's not what you're getting with this book. And so I had to rate it 5 stars because I needed to pull that average up a bit. Definitely recommend it. Will be purchasing a copy in May for my birthday. I'm just gonna keep saying I'm buying all these books in May. I'm not gonna be able to afford to buy all the books that I say I'm going to, but maybe I will buy a lot of books for my birthday. I need to turn that light on. It's getting dark in here. And then we will keep talking. Okay, I just turned on all the lights because it is a dark and dreary day. The next Michelle Shockley book that I read is not the one that was recommended in the Christian Booktubers video. I will be reading that one soon, hopefully. I have that one out now. But I read All That We Thought We Knew. This one is a World War II and also the 70s. I'm just realizing. It's the same time period as the other one, except that we follow a young woman that is a widow. Her and her husband were married for a few days before he went to Pearl Harbor. She was waiting for him to be able to have housing there, and then he died in the bombing. So she's living with her mother-in-law, who is a treat. The opposite of a treat. She resents her so much, which is, I don't even understand why. So she decides to get a job to get out of the house a little bit, and she goes to work at, I actually don't remember what it was. It was like a military base where they did lots of things, including there was a hospital where they were treating injured patients as they came back, I think, and also like people that got injured in training. And she is working as a clerk. She's updating different records. Through that, she meets a German man who is studying to become a doctor. And so he's actually like imprisoned, but because they're short-staffed, he kind of helps out in the hospital a little bit, but he's got like a personal bodyguard, like a guard that follows him around to make sure that he's not going to do anything bad. That was very interesting to read about, even like the treatment that guy got. And then in the 70s, we're with a young woman who has been living the hippie life. It comes home because her mother is dying from cancer. Her brother, she left about a year before, I think, because her twin brother was killed in Vietnam and she was very much against it. So she left right after the funeral to join a hippie commune in California somewhere. Also just very interesting. I haven't read, I don't know, I feel like I'm very fascinated by books about the Vietnam War or that have things to do with it, because like Gary D. Schmidt's books have a lot to do with it, and Susie Finkbeiner's books, and it's not a war that Canada was even involved in. So in some ways I'm like, why are books set around this time so interesting to me? But I don't know, that just seems to be a time period that I am very interested in. Yeah, really enjoyed it as well. So I can see why people recommended her books. We'll continue reading them. And then I finished a devotional, The Way of the Wildflower by Ruth Chow Simmons, Gospel Meditations to Unburden Your Anxious Soul. I got this for Christmas and it is just gorgeous. Like it's a very, let's fix this so you can see it. It's a very beautiful book. It's very nice to like pull out in the morning and read because it's just so happy. I really like the heading for the last week here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, I love this page. very, very beautiful. I've enjoyed what I have read from Ruth Chow Simmons before. This one, honestly, though, like, it just felt like I wasn't quite in the space. Like, I don't think it was written for the season that I'm in, which is fair. I'm definitely going to keep it and read it when I feel like I am in a season like this. I enjoyed it the last week the most. I just showed it to you. What was it? The Way of Belovedness. I think, like, there was when your life feels mundane and ordinary, when you feel alone in the world, that kind of thing. But there was also, like, when you're afraid of the future. Some of these just didn't feel very applicable. When grief is fresh, when you can't turn back the clock, when you feel misunderstood, when you're facing a big decision. Yeah, like, there was a lot of it that was like, okay, these are really good, and I know people in my life that I think would really benefit from this book or from this section. It just wasn't applicable to my season. So definitely going to keep it and reread it for when those seasons arrive. Would definitely recommend it for a gift for anyone that you know that is in a season of, I don't know, anxious soul. I don't know what I would change here. I don't think anxious is the right word. I feel like if you know someone that is struggling with depression, this would be a really good read. I think that's who I would recommend it for. But beautiful book. Okay, add that to the finished stack. What we got next? Okay, I decided to reread a book that I mentioned in my middle grade recommendations video. I reread Greetings from Witness Protection, where we follow this girl named Nikki. She is in foster care in a group home. She's been tried to be adopted a few times, but keeps coming back. She has a kleptomania problem, but the marshals, whatever department they're in, and witness protection have decided to start this new thing where they add kids from foster care into homes that are families that are going into witness protection. So there's this family of a mom and a dad and a brother that are going into witness protection, and Nikki, her name changes to Charlotte, ends up going into their family to help, make the trail harder for those that are trying to kill them. I enjoyed the humor in this book. I listened to it this time. I would not recommend the audiobook. It wasn't very good, and there was obviously a word that the main character, or the narrator, was mispronouncing, because every time that word was in there, you could tell that she went back and reread that line because it didn't quite add up. Plus, there is a few uses of taking the Lord's name in vain that didn't stick with me when I was reading it physically because I wasn't hearing it. And I just feel like it needs to be a written experience, or like a physically read experience, because there's like some pages that just don't make any sense when you are listening to it compared to when you're reading it. Like, there's like some phone calls and like just different pages that they don't make a whole lot of sense if you're listening to it. But yeah, recommend the book, but physically only. Then I read another Christian romantic suspense, and that is Shadowed Witness by Angela Carlisle. This is book 2 in the Secrets of Kincaid series. Book 1 was called, what was book 1 called? 1 was recommended in the, it's called Secondary Target. It was recommended in the Christian Booktuber collab video last year. So I read it after that, and I really enjoyed it. So in this one, we are following Allie Jessup. She is a photographer. Right at the beginning of the book, she witnesses a murder in a back alley by her photography studio. What was she? Yeah, she does have a studio. But when she wakes up, she's at the bottom of the stairs of her studio, and the mayor is trying to help her up, and she's all dazed and confused because he's saying she fell down the stairs, but she thinks she witnessed a murder, but she's also having these health issues. So she's wondering if hallucinations are part of it. But then she starts to have some like attacks on her, which also have some like hallucination elements to it, which was interesting. And also I realized our main character here had glasses, and I'm like, you never read a character that has glasses. As someone that usually wears glasses, it was nice to be like, hey, there's a good percentage of the population that wears them. Why are they never in books? But then, as most Christian romantic suspense goes, the detective assigned to her case is about her age, and he struggles to believe her because there are like some weird things. So at one point, someone breaks into her house and has like a weird green glow around them, which sounds a little alien-esque and not very believable. And because the murder that she thinks she witnessed, there was no body. Like, it's a lot of just her word not adding up. Yeah, but I read it, enjoyed it. Also liked that she's a freelance photographer because I used to do photography, and I don't know, she felt very much like me in many ways. Yeah, then book 3 I think is coming out later this year. So I'm gonna keep continuing with this series. Can you see all that mess back there? We've got a few more books left. We're almost at the end. I don't even know what I'm going to say about this one. It's Confessions of an Unlikely Pastor's Wife by Donna Lee Dick. I was gifted this book by another pastor's wife at the end of last year, and I had no idea what it was. It didn't really tell you what it was either, so I will tell you what it is and let you know that I was very confused for the first while. I thought going in, it would be, how do I say this, like organized thoughts about being a pastor's wife. Organized confessions. What it is, I think, is journal entries over the course of like 30 years. But there's no dates or indication of how much time is passing. Like, the entries can be really short, like there's an entry. Yeah, it's like multiple entries per page with no indication of how long they are. And they are just little snippets of her being a pastor's wife. And there is a lot in here that I appreciated, but there are some things like she tells, oh, I'm so embarrassed for her. She tells us, she tells a story how she was having, I think there was a couple people coming over for dessert one evening or something. I don't know who they were, fellow pastors, maybe pastor couples, I don't remember. Her husband was supposed to pick up milk for the icing for the cake that she was going to make, but he didn't make it home in time. So she decided to use breast milk to make this icing. And they were like, people were going back for seconds and complimenting her, and she said, oh, it's my special ingredient. And she could see the like realization dawning on her husband's face. He refused seconds, but yeah, everyone else did. And I hope all those people were dead before this book was published, because can you imagine like finding out that that's what you had eaten years before? And then who puts that into a book? So the book is more about like struggles about being a pastor's wife. Like, she finds out a different pastor's wife from a different church in the community is kind of pretty much having an affair with a guy in the church, and she's trying to figure out what does she need to do about that. And like, there's lots of instances of actual what it means to be a pastor's wife. And I really actually appreciated this one story. She was talking about meeting with some older pastors' wives. She said the problem is that they struggle with depression and spent most of the time sharing their complaints about pretty much everything. I've never struggled with depression, so what can I say? I don't know for sure that depression is even the primary issue. I was, however, feeling depressed when I drove home. That much I do know. And so yeah, there was nuggets that I really enjoyed amidst, like, I just was like, what am I even reading? So anyway, there's that one. Then I read Illuminary. I actually started this one in November and didn't get it finished before the end of the month. And then it was sitting on my nightstand for a while. This is kind of a bit of a fantastical, a Little Princess retelling. This is another book that I only found out when I was done that there was, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how long it was, a glossary. There's characters, like multiple pages of characters, and even not like necessarily just characters, but like character types, like what these words mean. There's locations, there's clothing and fashion, religious terms, currency and celebrations, titles, nicknames, and people, other. I didn't see this until I was done the book, and that needed to be before, because there was many things where I was like, okay, I kind of get the gist that this means like a rich person or something, but I didn't really know. Why is that so often at the end of the book? That is a big problem. But we're following a girl named Yosari. Now, it's been forever since I've read the beginning of the book. Her father sends her to go live with her aunt and 2 cousins while she's going to school. She wants to be an Illuminary, what is that exactly? Illuminator. I don't even know what it is. But on the way there, her father sends along this guy who she is told is going to be an apprentice for an inventor. And he's actually the prince of a neighboring kingdom that is fleeing assassination attempts on his life. And yeah, so like a little princess, Yosari, I mean, she is flawed, but she really sees the good in people and doesn't see those class differences that often exist. And I really appreciated that. It's hard because this book took me so long to read. I mean, I read it for a bit and then I just put it off and then I finished it. So it wasn't like I was reading it over the course of a number of months. It didn't quite grab my attention to finish it. So there is a second book. I don't know if it's just a duology or if it's going to be longer. I don't know if I care to read more. I'm not sure. It's disappointing though, because I love A Little Princess. I think that part of my struggle was the fact that it was set like, I mean, it's an imaginary type world, but it's got a little bit of an East Indian vibe. And I don't think I care about that setting very much. So kind of conflicted. If you guys have read it, are you going to read book 2? Let me know. And the last one, I think, is The Phantom of the Opera. I finished this near the end of the day on the last day of the month, last day of February. And that checks off another classic for me. This is technically not a Victorian Gothic. Like, my daughter is taking a Victorian Gothic class, and this is one of her reads, but it was written in 1910, which is after the Victorian era. But I don't know. You can count it in there or not. Either or. Yeah, I ultimately was really bored reading this book. I don't mind. The storyline was interesting. I don't like how it was written. It was originally written in French, so I don't know if it's a translation issue. I kind of don't think so though. I think I just don't like how it was written. I'd be very curious to read somebody rewrite this, not like a retelling or anything, but like just rewrite this differently, but the same story without changing anything. I'd be curious if that would be better. So yeah, I had mentioned in my last book haul that because I got 2 Phantom of the Opera retellings. One of them I really enjoyed last summer, but I had never read this before. And now like looking at it, it's like, okay, it doesn't have that much in common, which is probably good. And then the other one that I got that I have not read yet, the author has said that you don't need to like the Phantom of the Opera in order to, or even I don't think have read it, in order to like her book. So hopefully then it also deviates enough that it's good, if that makes sense. Yeah, feels good to check off a classic, especially one that I bought such a pretty cover for, but not for me really. Though this book, Empire of Shadows, was supposed to be my book for the Read Your Bookshelf challenge because it had 3 or more objects on the cover. But since I quit it, I decided this would be my book for the Reach Your Bookshelf Challenge, because there's candlesticks, there's a vase, there's a mirror, there's way more than 3 objects on the cover. So this one took the place for that for me. And that concludes my reading wrap up of February. 28 days, 23 books read. So let me know what you guys read in February. Any outstanding books that were really great. Any books that I just talked about that you are interested in reading now. Let me know. Always love to hear your recommendations, what you've been reading, what you want to be reading. Always enjoy chatting with you guys. So thanks for hanging out with me for a bit of an extra long video today.